Hey everybody, welcome to Miller's Military Moments, and of course I'm your host, Master Sergeant Jason Miller, Master Sergeant for only about 35 more days or so, but who's counting, right? I am. But hey, thanks for tuning in today. Episode 17, we've got an incredible and an amazing young man for a guest today, and this is definitely a surprise, I know, for many of y'all, because I have not push this out or let y'all know I was going to have him, except for those of you that have read my newsletter and you knew that I was going to have a special guest on. So today is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be me telling my stories. It's going to be Grant telling his stories. He's a former Marine, founder of Project Capable, and a former Marine sniper who was in the initial invasion in Iraq, has fought in Fallujah, and, has some really pretty crazy, interesting stories, as any person would have during that time. And I know, I've shared with y'all what my first week in Iraq during the initial invasion was, and on 2 episodes ago. So Grant he was also in the initial invasion of Iraq, but obviously in a different location, doing some different things than I was. Definitely, maybe some more dangerous things and things that a lot of us always love and appreciate our Marines out there doing. So, but yeah, so we've got him today, and he's going to share some of his stories with us, and then talk a little bit about his project where he's really trying to reach out and help veterans. Get some assistance that they need and just lead better lives, which, all of us can learn, and something about that to become better person, whether it's for yourself, for your family. And often, I have also talked about PTSD and some of those challenges and how we've overcome those things. And so I think, Grant's got some opportunities for that too. So y'all know I definitely support all that, which is why another reason why I'm excited to bring him on the show today and share his stories with you guys. And then, you get to hear about, some of the really tough and crazy things about being a Marine. Much tougher than anything I went through. I'll tell you that right now. So, hey, Grant, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate all the kind words that you introed me with. So thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's all the truth, man, and honesty. So quick story, about my not even attempt to join the Marines. So when I was looking into joining the military, I was a high school English teacher for 2 years, and I'd always wanted to be in the military when I was younger. Anyway, so I was looking in the different branches to serve. I said, look, hey, I want to do it now before I'm 40 and I regret it. And this is right before 9/11. So anyway, I looked at the Air Force, the Army, and the Navy. Yeah, I didn't look at the Marines. I just said, hey, look, at the time, I was a football coach, baseball coach, athlete and stuff. And I just said, look, I'm not tough enough to be a Marine, and I was okay with that. And I looked elsewhere. So anyway, this isn't about me, but yeah. So thanks, man, for bringing it. And that's just my little tidbit about not joining the Marines, but I appreciate everything that you guys do.
Got you. Well, we love doing it. So because I actually did the opposite. I didn't look anywhere else but the Marine Corps. So
okay, awesome. So that's really cool. And some of other Marines that I've talked to, honestly, are the same way. Like there's something about your personality or your character that I just want to go be a Marine. Like that's what I'm going to do, and you go do it. And so, before the show, we were talking about a good friend of mine, one of my best friends. His son is getting ready to leave for boot camp, and he was similar to you, saying, "I'm going to the Marines, and this is all I'm doing." I didn't look at any of the other ones. So there you go. So jump into your story and timeline. So you said you didn't look at anywhere else. How old were you when you decided to join the Marines?
So I grew up playing Army as a kid, going to the Army Navy stores, getting uniforms and gear from Vietnam era, the old sleeping bags that would soak up water
Oh
and
yeah.
weigh 100 pounds. So grew up doing that. And in high school, I took an interest in actually joining. So went and talked to a Marine Corps recruiter, and I'm a pretty, I analyze stuff a lot. So a deep thinker, I guess, so to speak. So it took a while for him to convince me to join the Marine Corps. But I weighed my options. I wanted to either do reserves and then switch to active duty or just do reserves. So it took him probably about 8 months to finally get me to say, all right, I'm going to join, be an active duty Marine, and go from there. So initially enlisted right out of high school. I enlisted as an MP. I had a contract to be military police, and the military police slot, didn't go to boot camp until December of that year. So I had to wait till December. And then probably a couple months later, one of the Marine OICs, or officer in charge of that recruiting area, he was a captain. He was an infantry officer. And he came and talked to me and convinced me to switch my MOS to infantry. And so I did that, and still kept my same boot camp date, but changed to infantry and went from there. They had, I remember they had a big, long poster of recon Marines on a Zodiac paddling down this river. Looked like kind of a Vietnam era type poster, maybe a little newer than that. But I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So I switched to infantry and went from there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I definitely have seen the poster.
Yeah.
So, one of the things, the military branches, they usually do a pretty good job of like putting that exciting thing either on a video or a picture, and you're like, yeah, I want to do that. So that's pretty cool. So this was right out of high school. So you were like 18 years old then?
Yeah. So I was 17 when I graduated high school, turned 18, and then, actually, funnier story was went to college orientation because I enrolled in college right out of high school. Freshman orientation was an overnight deal. Did the first day of orientation, spent the night. Second day, I said, I'm not doing this. I withdrew, dropped out, returned all my books, and went and joined the Marine Corps. So,
all right.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
So, yeah. So, and we're going to get into that history, but so I want to also point out or ask about, you talked about you're a deep thinker, and it took the recruiter a little while to really convince you to get in there. Now, I know, between the services, we always joke, about each other, and we pick on each other, different characteristics between the Army and the Marines and the Air Force. And I think, between us two, the Navy and the Air Force, they're the wimpier two, right. And, or, whatever. But, we definitely pick on the Marines, call them jarheads, and, they're just crayon eaters.
Yeah.
And, so I think that's kind of interesting. Really, you're breaking that mold right there. And let me tell you, most of my listeners are civilians that have never served in any branch. So that's great for them to hear that, so they're not just a certain way. They're not just people looking to go pull the trigger and do, those things. Are actually, intelligent people with deep thinkers like yourself and stuff like that. So cool.
Yeah.
That's a great story. So you're heading off to boot camp. So what is boot camp in the Marine Corps like? Because we've seen the movies, I've heard about it, and so tell us what boot camp is like.
So it's definitely a culture shock when you get there. You've signed your life away. and you you do what you're told, when you're told to do it, period, end of story. So when I went through, of course, there's been some changes. I went through in 2000 and 2001. So
Sure.
all we were able to do was mail, snail mail letters back and forth home. No contact with anybody outside. No, we didn't know what was going on in the outside world. When you get there, you're shocked by the drill instructors. Just total chaos. And they, from the moment you get there, you're told, when to put your socks on, what sock to put on, which foot at this time, take it off, put it on, take it off, put it on. And it's, wow. So it's a lot of mental breakdown and build you back up the way that they want to mold you. PT, when I went through, was mainly distance running and calisthenics. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing now because the Marine Corps has a new fitness program. But a lot of drill, a lot of knowledge, classroom type classes, and a lot of being molded into a Marine by force. So it's
right.
It's a unique experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it. I really wasn't far behind you. I was July of 2001 is when I went into basic training. So similar, but okay, the chaos and the breaking you down. Yeah, I don't think it was so intense for us. And our connection with the outside world is mostly letters. I think we got a phone call after 4 or 5 weeks, and then maybe once a week after that. So ours was probably a little bit better than that. So yeah, that's interesting. And I think ours is definitely longer than ours, 13 weeks or so.
Yeah, I believe it's still 13.
Yeah. Right. I think ours was about 9 at the time. I think they are extending it a little bit, and they are starting to, for us, try to focus a little bit more on the physical training as well, because we are also changing our physical training program a little bit more of a CrossFit style,
right?
Kind of total athlete. We used to do just push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run.
Yeah.
And that's what I did for almost 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. So, all right. So you're a molded Marine, infantry, and you're heading off to your first duty station. Where is that?
Yeah. Camp Pendleton, California. It's about,
wow. And where are you?
Well, I was going to say it's about halfway between LA and San Diego.
Okay. And where are you originally from?
Originally born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, but I moved around quite a bit my entire life. So I lived all over the U.S. except for the western states growing up. And I actually enlisted.
Okay.
Yeah, I enlisted in the Marine Corps out of Connecticut. That's where I went to high school. So.
Okay. I was just trying to paint the picture of seeing if that was your first time going way out there as a, 18, 19-year-old young man, and what that was like getting out there to the West Coast in your first duty station.
Yeah. So the furthest west I'd ever been prior to that was San Antonio, Texas. So it was going out there. It was a great duty station. That's by far. I've been to several bases and duty stations, and that one by far is the best one I've seen. Army, Air Force.
What's the name of that one?
Camp Pendleton.
Camp Pendleton. That's right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard nothing but good stuff. But I, like you, the furthest west I've ever been was Fort Hood, Texas, and then Fort Riley, Kansas. So I went out to California to train out in the desert, but that doesn't count. So
yeah,
I've never been in the Southern California area. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, that's good. I'm glad it was a good experience for you. So now it's 2001 ish, and I think you're getting ready to head out and head overseas already, somewhere around there.
Yes. Yes.
Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
So, June, I believe it was June of '01, went on my first deployment. Um, it was a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which an infantry battalion will deploy on Navy ships with some other assets, tanks and other support assets with them. And so we deployed. We went to several different countries, did about 3 months in the Middle East, mainly in Jordan and Kuwait, and some on the Horn of Africa. And then came back, and on our way back, we hit some more ports, Liberty ports. Got to see some different countries. Came back in December of '02. So I left in June of '02 was that first deployment. Came back in December of '02.
Okay.
Went on leave.
Okay.
I was fortunate. I was in the first leave block, so I got to go and enjoy my entire leave block, which was probably about 10 days. And then during the second leave block, the battalion recalled everybody off leave and said, "Hey, we're loading up on ship and headed to Iraq." And so
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. So just kind of remind everybody, December of '02. Like, listen, I mean, for me, like we pretty much knew we were getting ready to load our stuff up on the trains, railhead it down to port, Beaumont, Texas, and get it loaded up on the ships. So look, by December, we all knew, everybody that's going over there knew. And, really a few months later, March comes and we're invading Iraq. So, so here's, a young Marine that goes on leave, and then now he gets called back. Well, you got to enjoy all your leave, but some other people had to get called back, and now they're getting ready to invade Iraq. So there was a couple of, two things I want to ask about your deployment over there. One comment is I think it's interesting how you guys do your MEFs, your Marine Expeditionary Forces. You said you had like tanks and aircraft, and so does that like Hueys or Cobras and also Harriers?
yes,
Is that all that stuff
all
too?
that stuff. Yep. Yeah, it's essentially a self-contained fighting force.
That's pretty cool. So I think, one of the advantages that you all have is that you're a little bit, so you're smaller than us. I mean, Army, we're just huge. And sometimes it's hard for us to move, which why your name Expeditionary, because you can get your forces together quickly and move quickly. So I think that's definitely advantageous to be able to do that. Whereas in a lot of times, even when we as an aviation asset get broken down into, we'll call it a multi-task force, where we'll have attack, we'll have lift, and stuff, and then we'll get attached to a ground unit, and who knows from where, and then we'll go and do whatever we're supposed to do. So definitely, we don't get on a boat and go get dropped off by the Navy somewhere. So
right.
So that's kind of interesting. So you mentioned Liberty. So what is Liberty? And tell us about Liberty and any cool things you got to see or do.
So Liberty is essentially just your time off. When we got into a port, say it was a port that was a friendly country like Australia or even Hawaii or something like that, that they would let us off the ship, and we would be able to go out in town and just have to report back at a certain date and time or a time if we had to report back every day. And so we did.
Right.
We stopped at Hawaii, Australia, Singapore, Bahrain. Let's see, where else Saipan, Guam, and then the other ports where it wasn't friendly. Well, Kuwait wasn't not friendly, but we still had to have security. Jordan, And then off the Horn of Africa, Djibouti. Of course, there's not a port there, so we're just off the coast there. Let's see. I'm probably missing a couple stops, but that was essentially all the stops we made on that deployment.
That's pretty cool. I mean, from my perspective, I think a lot of the Navy definitely promotes getting to see the world and see all those things. And I don't know if the Marines really focus on that aspect as much, because they're really trying to attract warriors.
Yeah,
is what I think of anyway. But
yeah, we don't. They don't really
the Liberty
recruit that much, or that's not that much in their message as much as it is with the Navy.
Right. Yeah. So, but it's cool that you got to experience some things like that. So
yeah.
My experiences were just traveling through. The one interesting experience was my 1 year in the Sinai Peninsula. So 12 months there, and we have Army aviation there, and it's part of the Multinational Forces Observers Group. It's not NATO or UN, and it's just we have civilians that were flying around to count how many forces the Egyptians have and the Israelis have, but close to the border, and then they just report to each side, and then that's it. But I was probably sober less times than I was drunk the entire year I was there. So it was definitely a crazy time. But and those shows are coming. So those shows are coming up for sure. But definitely some stories from then. So,
yeah.
But that's really cool that you got to see some of those places and enjoy some of those things. And so there was another incident while you were on that deployment, and something about blank ammo and not having any ammo available.
Yeah. So my company and my unit was training, and we were in Kuwait, or the MEU was in Kuwait, and we had gone and we were on this rotation in Falaka Island, and this was in October of 2002, and another infantry company had trained there the week prior, and this was a training ground that has been used for several years by the Army, the Marine Corps, whoever wants to use it. So I guess there were some residents on the island that knew the training rotation schedule, and we were training there one day. We were doing military operations in urban terrain, or mount training there, and we did not have live ammo, because it's a big time safety issue if you have live ammo in the presence of a scenario where you're going force on force using blank ammunition. So we didn't have any live ammo except for our command post, our company command post, and the company command staff. They had some live ammo because they weren't doing any force on force training with us. So in the middle of one of those days, I think it was only the first or second day we were there, what we later found out was two Al Qaeda operatives drove up in a pickup truck with AK-47s and started opening fire on our position out there. My platoon in particular was actually in the training area training, and two other platoons and the headquarters element was back at our position. It was on the beach where we were at, staged. That was our sleeping area. And so they opened fire on the Marines that were there. They hit a few Marines. And thankfully the guys in the CP, the company command, they reacted quickly and eliminated the threat and took out those operatives. Unfortunately, one Marine was killed and another was pretty seriously wounded. And we had to get ammo flown in from another company that was further inland in Kuwait. They heloed in some ammo for us, so we all loaded up and cleared the immediate perimeter, and then we had to get some LCACs, or what a civilian would look at and call a hovercraft, come get us from the island. And so we had to pack up all our stuff, and we marched over to this, I guess it was kind of a dock area, and we got picked up and taken back to actually an army base. We got taken to, well, we got off the LCACs and then went to Camp Doha, that was there in Kuwait, and we stayed there for a few days and then got back on ship after that, and that was the end of that training. So yeah, that was a unique experience.
That is crazy.
Yeah. No ammo.
I mean, like, what do? You have no ammo, and you're like, what? Like, you're just ducking for cover at that point.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. I can't. Yeah, I just can't even imagine. Yeah, so you're feeling helpless. Like,
yeah.
What do I do? What do I do with my hands? You know?
Yeah, because and we didn't know how many more Al Qaeda operatives there were. You know, they took out those two, but we didn't know if they had built up a position in the buildings around us or what. So yeah, it was pretty sobering.
Sure. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, you wouldn't imagine that only two are coming to attack a bunch of Marines anyway. So it makes sense to think, hey, there's more. We need to, check the perimeter stuff. So, I mean, definitely lucky there was only two.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Man, that is crazy. Well, glad you're okay. Sorry about the other guy that, passed, the other guy that was wounded. I mean, that's definitely tough.
Yeah.
So let's move to, because I know you deployed, so we kind of you got to that point where you're getting ready to talk about getting called back from leave. You made it through your leave, and you're coming over to Iraq, and let's talk about that. Yeah, your initial invasion. What is it like during that initial invasion as a Marine infantry guy? Conditions, speed of the battle, I think is kind of interesting because it definitely seemed like it was very mechanized driven.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how did you all play your role as, Marine infantry guys? I think is interesting to hear, that perspective. So yeah, let us know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could talk for days about the stories about this, but, so we offloaded.
Hey,
ship.
Will, let me tell you, we will bring you back. Okay. So absolutely. We'll get through some stories today, and then I'm having a great time. So yeah. We will bring you back anyway, and we'll continue, and we'll tell the rest of them another time. So don't worry about that. All right. Here we go.
Sounds good. So we offloaded the ships by helo, flew into Kuwait, got to our camp. There were several camps that were in Kuwait, not far from the border of Iraq. It was, those big circus-looking tent. That's what we stayed in with the wooden floors, and we stayed there for probably a month or so, maybe. Yeah, probably a monthish, and then we made the push to the border. Initially, we were going to have to ride in 7 tons. That was a total disaster because we were going to have to. We had sandbags on the floors, and then we had MRE boxes full of sand on each side of the 7-ton to try to get some type of armor on there. It was a complete disaster. So about a week and a half before we were going to make the push up to the border, we got a track company. So we were like, oh, thank goodness. And it was a reserve company out of Virginia Beach. And so we linked up with those guys, and we made the push up to the border. And when the attack kicked off, we made our way up to, I guess there was a giant berm that these engineers had to create these massive explosions to blow it up in order for, the division-sized element to pass through. I'm sure they did it in several locations, but
Right.
it was quite large
Yeah.
where we had to go through. And initially there was a couple of Scud missile launch attacks right as we were crossing the border. So that was interesting. Of course, it didn't. I don't think it amounted to anything, but it was like, okay, this is real now. So we made the push up the border, up through the desert area in southern Iraq, kind of west of Basra, which is in southern Iraq. And we were moving quick. We rode in these Amtraks pretty much all day, and at night we would get out and dig these little skirmisher trenches just deep enough to where we could lay in them and pull security. And if some type of indirect fire attack came, we would be at least below ground level. So they weren't too deep, but they were deep enough to provide protection from that. And we pushed up to Nasiriyah, and this is when the infamous attack on the army unit that took a couple of wrong turns, and the whole Jessica Lynch story with the kidnappings and stuff. So another Marine battalion was in the city with that at the same time that army unit was, and we had gotten reports that they were getting heavily engaged. They had taken many, many casualties. And so we went in, our battalion and 1st Recon Battalion went in right behind them at nighttime and went up the main route that runs north-south through the city and secured that entire road so the rest of the division could pass through without getting, attacked and having that same scenario happen again. And then we moved up north of Nasiriyah, and we were moving so fast at some point in time, we outran the logistics train. So we were down to 1 MRE a day and limited water. And when you're wearing full combat loadout and you're sweating, and we were in mop suits. So, everything, was hot, and it wasn't too hot because it was still March, but it still was not nice and cool out. But we got down to that 1 MRE a day, and we were down to that for probably a few days. We were eating the salt packets. I mean, even the toilet paper was looking pretty tasty. So we were eating everything in that entire MRE. We were eating it. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. But eventually the log train caught up with us at some point in time. I can't remember. And we made we got outside of Baghdad and got the all clear to take off our mop suits, our nuclear, biological, chemical suits. And we pushed into Baghdad, into Saddam City. It's kind of a ghetto slum type area of Baghdad. And we took up a position in this industrial complex to use for our forward operating base for our battalion in this base, because it was walled. It had towers, like guard towers already there. So it was set up for a nice defensive position. And then we ran patrols out of there in Saddam City for quite a while before we started heading back south.
Okay. So, and couple things. So Saddam City kind of later turns into Sadr City. And I'm drawing a blank right now that the fiery cleric that I think he kind of comes out, he really rises up in maybe 04, 05.
Yes.
And maybe we had to deal with him during the surge in 06. What was his name? Do you remember?
Muqtada al-Sadr.
Yeah, Muqtada al-Sadr. Yeah, Sadr City. Got it. Yeah. Muqtada al-Sadr. Yes. I mean, because my second deployment was 06 in Baghdad. And I mean, we were just, the aircraft couldn't fly enough. I mean, we were just flying nonstop. The guys on the ground were just, everywhere, anywhere. So yeah, we spent a lot of time over there in Solder City. So yeah, that was, and it's definitely an interesting, when I look back at like where I was in 03 then compared to, what it was in 06 as well. It's definitely, it was a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So, I think, another interesting thing when you're talking about outrunning the log train, senior level commanders. I mean, I was a junior soldier then too. Like I just do what I'm told, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I understand now when I look back, like, and especially you guys were ahead of us, but there's that fine line of, okay, we've got the enemy on the run. I mean, can we just got to keep going. I mean, we just keep going. Like we just, can't, well, we don't have any food, sir. Well, yeah, but if we pause, then they can recollect. I get it. It's tough, but at some point you got to feed you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's interesting to know that y'all had those challenges. So, again, we were coming up a few weeks behind y'all. So, now when we got up north, we had those same challenges. When we got all the way to Camp Spiker up by Tikrit, we absolutely had the same log challenges. And we were 2 MREs a day, better than one for sure. So, until they figured it out. But, so, the whole Jessica Lynch situation and, communication directions, and then also, so like you're talking about the, putting sand in the MRE boxes and sandbags. So, I talked about this in a previous episode. We have no armored vehicles either.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
I mean, we're riding in soft skin Humvees.
Yeah.
Soft skin 5 tons. Like my IOTV, my vest, it was just a flak vest. I didn't have plates.
Yeah.
I had no plates. And I left on we called it a FLEE, forward leading element, the first part of the aviation unit. Anyway, no plates. Like I didn't even know I was supposed to have any. I didn't even know. And so, and I was only given 120 rounds of ammo, basic load,
Oh, wow.
It was 180. We got 120. I didn't have to shoot any, but thank goodness, right?
Yeah.
How are we going to war? And like, this is happening here. Marines, you guys are getting ready to cross with no armored vehicles. I mean, and I'll fast forward to when we're coming home in 04, when we had to drive, now in 04, IEDs are starting to pop up and all that stuff. So we've got to bring all of our equipment home. And so we look like the A-Team, when they, in the middle of their show, when they would go and manufacture all the stuff for their vehicle, like we were putting iron plates and Kevlar blankets everywhere because we still didn't have any armor,
Yeah.
So, but we're the most well-equipped military in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So not always so, but, so that's, definitely, some interesting things and, really almost the same scenarios. Oh, Scud missiles. Yeah. So I think we were in Kuwait as you were probably up on the, crossing up, maybe even up to Nasiriyah by then. Anyway, yes, Scud missiles. The stupid chemical detectors go off and say, there's chemical weapons. MOP 4. I'm like, oh my God. And I, shared this story previously too, thinking I'm about to die here of heat in this stuff. And I'm not having to do what you're doing. And, because I saw most of y'all were in what we would consider MOP 2 tops and bottoms.
Yeah.
And then, trying to fight and maneuver and all that kind of stuff. And it adds, what I try to explain to people is when you add that many layers to you and your body heat gets so hot, it starts to take away from your ability to focus on everything else, which is one reason why we have to be in such great physical shape. And, of course, the Marines, I mean, you guys are definitely in, just generally in much better physical shape than we are, especially on the aviation side. We're all about the aircraft and fixing fuel and flying, baby.
Yeah.
But anyway, So, all right. So you're there. And so how long were you there once you got kind of established? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up a little bit. So with the communications and the directions, like how challenging was that as far as GPS, using digital stuff to know where you're moving, how far you're going? Did y'all have a lot of that equipment? Was it working properly, or did y'all really just hard map it and this is where we're going, this intersection, stuff like that?
Yeah, the battalion level, they had the Blue Force trackers and GPS.
Okay.
We had some at the company level, but we mainly used map. We had some pretty good maps, satellite images and stuff that were decent. Of course, that all changes when you get on the ground, but they were good enough. I think we probably took a couple of wrong turns at some point in time, but it wasn't too bad. We got back on track pretty quick. But I can definitely see where if you didn't have someone trained in land navigation, that it could go bad really quick over there as far as losing your sense of direction and where you're at.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think about the Jessica Lynch situation. And so look, I know, because I think they were a reserve or National Guard unit, and I'm definitely not trying to pick on them, but the reality is I know how much we train on certain items, and I'm active duty every day. And I definitely know how little the National Guard reserves train on those other things. So
exactly,
it probably honestly was just a tall ask to have them do that. And so we were similar to you with the Blue Force Tracker, which for all our listeners, it's a digital system where you can see blue on the map are the good guys and red are bad guys, if that information is being fed down to your system. And it has a moving map, but there's only like one per X number of vehicles. So definitely some challenges there. Yeah. And so with her unit, it probably just honestly was a tall ask. And I know from my time driving through, it was pretty, looking around in the city, there's just no rhyme or reason to a lot of their streets and how everything flows. And then when I was a crew chief the second time and I was flying in the Blackhawks and I'm looking down at this stuff and I'm like, what the, like this place, it's just, yeah. When you use the word slum, it really is. It is a mess. So yeah, navigating your way through that must have just been definitely very challenging. And then the other thing I'm thinking of is calling in air support.
Oh yeah.
Did you have any experience with that, or did you get involved with that, or how challenging was that if you did?
So my second deployment I did. My first, that initial invasion, I didn't have to call in any air. Second one though. Yeah.
Okay.
Or my third one, I should say.
Okay. Third one. I think we mentioned earlier, or maybe this was before the show, but the Marines, they deploy more often, but for shorter times. So I don't know if it's any better. The Army early on, we went for a year at a time, and then I probably got about 15 months at home, and then went for another year. So yeah, who knows? But Marines, and then I think the Air Force does 7 months. So yeah. So that's definitely a challenge. So when did you get to go home on that deployment?
So we went home in late May of 2004 from that deployment. We were I think we were the first infantry battalion to return home.
2003, you mean?
Yes, I'm sorry, 2003. Yeah, May of 2003.
Yeah, okay. Yep, so initial invasion, and then I want to say President Bush, was it May of 2003 when he landed on the carrier and said mission accomplished?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So you got to go home shortly after that. How intense was any of y'all's engagements, firefights, and stuff like that in those few months?
My battalion, fortunately, as a young warfighter who's never seen combat, you wouldn't think that it would be fortunate to not see any action or much action. But after my third deployment, after seeing war up close, I know that I was very fortunate in not seeing much action on that second deployment. So we got into a few engagements, mostly small arms. No one in my entire battalion was killed. Some were wounded. No one was killed. And we had a relatively uneventful deployment in regards to kinetic combat, if you will. We were running combat operations, but we didn't meet much resistance. The vast majority of the people we encountered were all either surrendering, waving white flags, or welcoming us. So it was actually it was quite an experience to have those people welcome us for the most part. Now there were some Saddam loyalists that did engage us in firefights and stuff, but it was pretty minimal for my battalion. There were some other infantry battalions that definitely were much more heavily engaged than mine was for that deployment.
Yeah, I think your story is probably rather similar generally for all of our first deployments in Iraq, meaning, it really definitely was armored aircraft, and moving fast. And then, like you were saying, most of those people just wanted to surrender. They didn't want to fight. I mean, so, which is kind of, I think a lot of it, which is how, President Bush mission accomplished in May, we had no idea what was going to transpire after we defeated the Saddam loyalists and the regular army was over. Because they didn't want to fight toe to toe or anything like. They didn't have the equipment. They didn't have a lot of stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff that we learned afterwards. Like they were nowhere near the army that they seemed to be, even on paper. So, so I want to talk about that experience of the people welcoming you and surrendering. What was that like? How did that feel? How did that make you feel? As an American soldier in a foreign country and somebody is welcoming you into their country.
It was pretty surreal. Because you go there and you're geared up for combat, and then you're met with open arms. It's kind of
right.
It's kind of an interesting dynamic, because obviously we pulled security and made sure we were running combat operations the way we were trained, but
sure,
we weren't met with resistance. Even going on patrols, initially people were coming up to us and thanking us. I mean, 9 out of 10 people coming up to us, thanking us, giving us, wow. There's a famous picture of one of the sergeants that was in my company that he was just being overrun in a good way with Iraqi citizens, and they were giving him flowers. And it was just that it was that kind of thing. And so it was interesting. There was a couple of quick little stories off that, running patrols. There was a guy that could speak very good English, and he started talking to me on the patrol, and he was wearing a Metallica t-shirt, and it was like he essentially had very little accent and just talking about Metallica. It was like, whoa, that's interesting. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then another patrol I went on, there was a kid wearing a T-shirt of the school that I went to in elementary school here in the United States. And he was,
What?
Yes.
No way.
Yes. I'm dead
But
serious.
how did he get that?
I'm assuming it was some mission work,
Wow.
that these clothes get sent
Sure,
overseas.
sure.
And I was
Yeah.
like, this is the strangest thing I've seen. This kid
Oh
wearing a
my
T-shirt from
gosh.
the school I went to in elementary school. So
Right.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, that is crazy.
yeah.
That is nuts, man. Gosh, I'm sitting here trying to process all these people welcoming you and coming through. Now, so when I was traveling through Baghdad, I mean, I could visualize the same stuff. Meaning, it was. I mean, people were there, and they definitely weren't trying to hurt us or anything like that. A lot of them waving and stuff like that. So I felt that once we got up there to our positions and started running operations out there, like right, like a liberator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like that's what we were doing. Like,
Yeah.
And the people were good with it. Like they were, yes, we're welcoming you. Like, thank you. Like, this is going to be awesome. And it just, I don't know. We can talk another time on what we think happened. And, because a lot of it will come into religious, the religious sects between the Shia and the Sunnis.
Yeah.
And they're dislike for each other. And then the Kurds, the poor Kurds up there.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially we almost kind of got caught really in between all of it moving forward. Because, the Shia definitely felt like, oh, this is our chance. They've been strong armed by Saddam the whole time, pushed down by the Sunnis. So anyway, so I felt like, we were liberators too, and this was going to be a good thing and relatively uneventful was what I was kind of seeing, in our first several months. And then the last half of 2003, it started getting a whole lot dicier and things started happening. Aircraft started getting shot down and, so that was one of my jobs. Since we had all the equipment, we had to go recover downed aircraft. And, so that's, man, I've got a story coming up in a few episodes too about, so I had soccer shoes and soccer balls sent over and school supplies from the high school I used to teach at. And we went out to some of the local villages and, handed them out and stuff like that. And that was like one of the best things ever, I mean, the kids loved it. I mean, the people loved it. It felt like, again, they wanted us there. It's all going to be okay. We're going to essentially help them get their country started again and let them decide how they want to do it. But shit, man, 20 years later and it's still, it's still, it's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
So, well, Grant, I have had a great time and, we're getting close to an hour and I really don't want to stop, but I know we need to, but there's so much more to you and your story that can you promise the viewers that you'll come back and we'll continue on with some of your adventures? Because you've got some we didn't even talk about you being a sniper yet and some of those things and even Project Capable.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So we'll kind of, I don't want to say stop, but we'll, close it up from here. And so really you kind of get through that deployment, you get home in May and you're heading back to Camp Pendleton in California.
Yes.
And get ready for some good R&R, which we call leave. And did you go back home?
Yeah, I did.
Did you go back home? Was that Connecticut?
So yeah. So
okay.
What
was that like?
Actually, it was almost euphoric because here I am, a 21-year-old Marine that's been in combat operations, made it back alive. I'm back in the United States where no one's actively trying to kill me and life is good. So I just felt like I was on top of the world, cloud nine. Nothing bothered me. You know, you get, life gets put in perspective after you go on a deployment in the military. So things that bother us in first world US are no factor any longer after you've been subjected to the things we were subjected to. So I mean, you know, sitting in traffic, no worries. Your food, you're sitting at a restaurant waiting for food. When some people would get mad, you're like, yeah, whatever, it's cool. You know, stuff like that. The simple stuff doesn't get to you. So yeah, I really felt euphoric after that deployment. Mainly because I was glad to be back, I guess, after being gone for pretty much a year. But the other stuff, doing the combat operations and coming back to the land of the free, you know, where we're not actively having to defend our lives on a daily basis. So,
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good. I'm glad you felt like that and had, you know, those kinds of emotions. I had similar ones when I came back. It was like euphoric is a really good word for it. It's yeah, and then those little things just don't matter.
yeah.
It's just it's like it's too simple. It's like I
Mm.
don't. The food will get here.
Yeah.
It'll be okay. Traffic's going to move. There's no one trying to harm me right now.
Yeah.
You know, um, being on with that heightened awareness, that being on edge when you're in combat operations 24/7 for however long you're there is, I don't know how to explain it to people. I mean, it
Yeah.
just is, it's tough, you know, so when you get home and you can just, you know, let it all out, that's, it's good. It's good stuff. And I'm glad you got to experience that.
Yeah.
So I know that you've got some other challenges, in your upcoming deployments and stories and, you know, coming home and stuff like that. And so let's go ahead and stop here
Okay.
and, leave the audience hanging. And then you and I will leaving me hanging too, audience. I haven't heard these stories either. So I'm excited. This is a great time. And I'm going to get sidetracked here for a second, but, listen, veterans, everybody, anybody out there, like this is the stuff that a lot of times we miss when we leave the service, and is interacting with each other, sharing these stories, sharing these moments, and whether it's at the VFW, which, you know, anyway, there's other places we need to be better at reaching out to each other, finding each other, and, you know, sitting down and having a beer or sweet tea or whatever it is you do, and just reminiscing, because we did enjoy some camaraderie, that brotherhood, that willing to do whatever it takes to protect your teammate and brother is a powerful thing. And I think it's good for us veterans when we get a chance to do this.
Absolutely.
It's good for me anyway. I like it because I have had problems in the past where I'll shrink away, you know, and I'll disappear.
Yeah.
And, you know, people are like, hey, you okay? Where you at? You know, so definitely, let's, you know, all of us out there continue to reach out to each other and check on each other and swap some stories. And I hope that our stories get bigger and better as we get older, just like the fish. You know, every time we tell that fish story, that fish is going to get bigger. So that's okay. Our war stories are going to get even better. So, all right. So I knew I was going to get sidetracked. That's okay. This was Grant. This was a great episode. Great time hanging out with you. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And I can't wait to bring you on again. I can't wait to get this one published and out there. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate it. Definitely was fun, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Awesome. So before I close it up, though, is there anything else that you wanted to share with this episode did you want to, mention Project Capable or wait till the next time? And it's okay if you want to talk about it now, or we can make them wait.
Yeah, let's wait till next time, because I could probably go down a rabbit
Okay.
hole.
Okay. No, which is great. Hey, which is actually, yeah, that's a great thing. And listen, this Project Capable is a great thing, everybody. And so I hope he goes down a rabbit hole. I hope he really gets into the whys and that it came about. And, when you find your purpose, then your people are going to feel your passion. And, I love that quote. And I think, Grant has that in this thing. He's finding his purpose and people are feeling his passion. And that's one of the things it's all about. So I hope he goes down a rabbit hole and tells us all about it and lets us know how he's able to help others that need it out there. So anyway, all right, we'll close it up for today. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Miller's Military Moments. And you can catch me on my website, millersmilitarymoments.com. And there you can find links to my YouTube channel and also the podcasts. All the episodes are on there, but you can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places too. And Twitter, Moments Miller. But you can do Jason Miller is what my Twitter handle is now. You can find me there too. So, but yeah, so check us out. And if you're interested in subscribing to my newsletter on my website, please do so. Weekly newsletter, actually it's going to be a bi-weekly now. And you get insights and updates to the stories. And also you get a lot of pictures that are related to the stories that are sometimes on my Instagram and Facebook page. So, but I won't spam your email by any means. But you can go to my website, millersmilitarymoments.com, and subscribe there. And then I can send you the newsletter there. And you can kind of get a little bit of insight into what's going on. So anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. Just remember, if you need help, reach out to somebody that can help you. And if you can help, reach out to those that might need it and give them that assistance. And let's all do our part to make the world a better place. Until next time, see ya. Peace.